The first one is appetite control. Brothers and sisters, beloved, I beg you, as sojourners and pilgrims. What's a sojourner? I preached a sermon on sojourners once. What's a sojourner?
Traveler.
A traveler, you know what? It's more than a traveler, although that is part of it. Anyone else? A sojourner, for example, several years ago I had the great privilege of traveling to Europe. I was a traveler. Had I been a sojourner, I would have rented my house and lived in Europe for a while. A sojourner is someone who lives in a land that is not his own. We call them immigrants nowadays. Those who have come here to live, who are really citizens of another land. And we can tell. Sometimes it's how they look, the color of their skin. Oftentimes it's their speech, their language. Sometimes it's their culture. The things that they eat. Or the pursuits that they go after. Peter says Christians should regard themselves as resident aliens in this world. We may live here, but this is not our home. Remember the old gospel song, "This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through." If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what would I do? As sojourners and pilgrims, as resident aliens, as those who are in very significant ways detached from the culture of the secular world, I beg you, number one, abstain from fleshly lust. We've really limited our understanding of that King James phrase. When I say fleshly lust, you say to yourself, oh, he's talking about sexual sin. I'm talking about that and a lot more. I'm talking about your appetite. I teach high school. And I've told many people this in my school over the last couple of years. There's a race on now between the date of my retirement and the possibility of my murder of teenage boys someday. It's a real tight one. It's getting really close. Because teenage boys, I've watched this for so many years, they are consumed by their appetites, what they want right now. Whether it's food, whether it's pleasure, whether it's recreation, whether it's sex, whatever, they are consumed by their appetites. They don't ever think much beyond lunch. And you know what? I say this to my shame. I'm sometimes the same way. Abstain from fleshly lusts. Peter begs us. I beseech you, it says in the King James. I beg you, it says in modern English. Control your appetites. We live in a country in which we are encouraged to let our appetites reign supreme. I got a kid in my class. He has 100 pairs of expensive tennis shoes. Yeah, he's proud of that. He wears a different pair every day. Each pair looking more foolish than the last pair. And of course, that's not like my father when I say that. They're impressive. He wouldn't dare if he got them dirty, he would never wear them again. If anybody steps on them, there's a fight brewing. Why do you need that many pairs of shoes? Because he's been convinced that his life is enhanced by having them. The great lie of our time. Your life is enhanced by living in this neighborhood, by driving this kind of car, by not only having one suit, but when you buy one, we'll give you two for free. This is how we are trained. In our culture, we are trained to go for your appetites. Go for it. Peter says, as sojourners and pilgrims, as those who are detached from the values of this secular world, don't fall for that. Abstain from fleshly lusts. And there is the first distinguishing characteristic of the Christian. He's a person whose appetites do not control his behavior. Peter says that, and I think he had no idea back then when he wrote those words how true they would ring today in our culture. You are set apart if it becomes clear that you don't care what anybody thinks about your clothes or your car. It doesn't matter to you. That you can wait. My old pastor always said that. That is the most basic sign of maturity, Reverend Dixon said. The ability to wait for something you want. The ability not to go out on a credit limit in order to have it now. The discipline to wait for it until you can pay for it, until you properly can own it. I say many of these things convicted of my own failures. Yeah. Peter says that's the first mark. The fact that you are not driven by your appetites. Let's continue. Well, here I've closed my Bible. I have to open it up. I beg you as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts why? Because they war against your soul. Wow. That ups the ante quite a bit. If you are controlled by your appetite, Peter says, this will affect your spiritual growth. And that is true. Let us continue. Having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles. Second discerning characteristic, goodness. Goodness. Are you a good person? Remember one time when Jesus was asked a question, the questioner said, tell us, good sir, and Jesus said, oh, only God is good. Well, we get that, Jesus. But what do I mean when I say we should be characterized? One of our distinguishing characteristics should be our goodness. We should be good people. Christians should be the best neighbors. They should be the best worker in the plant, the best worker on the job site, the best worker in the office. Christians should be the best boss, the best manager, the best accountant. We should be good. Oh yeah, that person is good. They may have no idea that we are Christians, but they know at least this, that is a good person. Have your conduct honorable among the Gentiles. Among those who don't believe, Peter says, give them no excuse. Give them no excuse to doubt your character. Now, in Peter's day, that was critically important. He writes this letter, most scholars believe, at a time when the official government persecution of Christians has begun. And a lot of crazy stories about Christians were swirling around the countryside. A lot of rumors, a lot of crazy charges. And Peter said, these are going to come no matter what you do. However, it behooves you to give them no excuse to say, see, I told you, that's how those Christians are. They're very judgmental. They're all righteous, but they leave early. They don't get along with people they don't care for. Blah, blah, blah. Peter says, don't do that. Have your conduct absolutely upright. You pay your taxes. You don't try to wangle out of anything. In fact, what does Peter say? I made a list here in the sermon notes. Let's see. Distinguishing characteristic number 2, goodness, honorable conduct in all affairs and relationships, a legacy of good works. What does that mean? Boy, acts of kindness. Being thoughtful. I've told this story before, I think. I was one time this is a house in Jefferson. I was sitting on the kitchen table having dinner. My daughter's boyfriend then was at the house, and they were pretty serious. We're beginning to wonder if this might lead to something more than just a boyfriend-girlfriend thing. They were both in college, and it started to rain suddenly, and I ran outside and helped Sandra take the laundry. We had laundry up on the clothesline. Remember clotheslines?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had laundry up on a clothesline, and I helped her bring it in, and we brought it in, and I sat down, and Rachel says, wow. I wonder if I'll ever be able to rely on a husband to do that. To do what? To spontaneously run out there and help Mom take the laundry off the line. It didn't occur to me I was doing a good work, but it turns out I was. It is being thoughtful. You should be, Christian fathers, the most thoughtful, considerate husbands who ever lived. Your wife should be so thrilled that you are her spouse. And wives the same way. You should be the most splendid wives who ever lived. And one of the things that distinguish you, one of your distinguishing characteristics would be your good works. You don't mind helping out around the house, do you, husband? You don't mind vacuuming the house once in a while. You don't mind helping out with the laundry. I know this for a fact. If Sandra came home from Connecticut next Saturday, Lord willing, and I had the house vacuumed, all the laundry done, and dinner on the table, she'd die and go to heaven. Immediately. She would. And I wonder now, why? What will stop me? Well, I can't cook for one thing, but I will vacuum. I will. And you know what? Here's the key. Of course, sometimes your wife says, honey, I can't. You know, the kids are driving me crazy. Your parents are coming over for dinner. Could you please vacuum? Oh, I guess. I hate that, you know. Oh, thank you very much. That is not a good work. You are now disqualified. Boy, we should be setting the standard. And it blesses us and it blesses others. It is a distinguishing characteristic. Appetite control and just general goodness. Just being good, just behaving. Yes, we obey the traffic laws. Don't we? Yes, we play fair. Yes, we don't try to get around something that we know we should be doing. We don't always go for shortcuts. We try to do the job the best way we can. We try to bring it on time. If we fail, we don't lie about it. And you know what? I just didn't get it done. I really apologize. It is just being good. What a testimony. Distinguishing characteristic number 3. This was kind of hidden in the New King James. Therefore, in verse 13, Peter writes, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake. Yeah, there you go. One of the aspects of goodness is obeying the law. And you obey the law not because you think it's a great law, but for the Lord's sake. Whether to the king as supreme or to governors, etc., verse 15, for this is the will of God, that by doing good you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free, yet not using liberty as a cloak for vice, but as bondservants for God. In the New Living Translation, verse 16 reads this way, you are not slaves, you are free, but your freedom is not an excuse to do evil. You are free to live as God's slaves. What kind of freedom is that? Third distinguishing characteristic, freedom. I have to redefine freedom to your thinking now. Well, we live in a free country. We are free. Turn your Bibles to John chapter 8. John chapter 8. John 8 beginning at verse 31. Here is Jesus talking about true freedom. So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth. How does that finish? And the truth will make you free. They answered him, we are offspring of Abraham. We have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Jesus answered them, truly, truly I say to you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The Son remains forever. So, if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. Martin Luther said these words, a Christian is a perfectly free Lord of all, subject to none.